Hey, what's going on? This is Ricardo with the Code 7 Podcast Network, and we're about to get started with the Dispatchers Roundtable, round number 27. It's been a little while, but we're back, and we have, oh man, there are a lot of topics and different rounds that are going to be coming up for the rest of the year, so look out for it. But before we get started here, as always, a word from our sponsors.
At InDigital, we know the public safety professionals hold themselves to a high standard. In fact, standard doesn't do it justice. In over 25 years working alongside you, carrying millions of calls over our IP networks, your dedication has inspired us. That's why our ESI net goes beyond industry standards, not only I3 compliant, but designed to adapt to future development for a network you can count on when it matters most. Learn more at indigital.net.
Here in Greenville County, we have 8 different places where a 911 call can be answered.
It is the largest county in South Carolina. It's a challenge.
The type of information that a telecommunicator gets from Radius Plus is location-based technology. You can see where the caller is, if they have a medical issue, if they speak a different language. They're immediately able to text to that caller in their native language. It reduces response times because it immediately gets first responders where they need to be.
If Within the Trenches has ever taught you something, open your eyes to what it is like to be a 911 dispatcher, or has inspired you to become one, then help support us and join our Patreon. Get exclusive bonus content, one-of-a-kind swag, discounts on merchandise, ad-free early access to new episodes, and much more. To join, please visit patreon.com/WTT podcast. And if you're an industry partner, we have something for you as well. And now, for the show.
This is Jordan, and you're listening to the Code 7 Podcast Network.
Warning. This episode contains the 3 A's of podcasting: adult content, adult language, and awesomeness. You've been warned. All right. As you almost saw, Open Mic was about to jump on there. This is the promo for all of them. It's just Open Mic is the one that's readily available. So I keep that one on there. I'm actually working on an animated Dispatchers Roundtable to pop up and everything. So look out for that one as well. This is sponsored by InDigital Rapid Deploy as well as Carbine. This is going to be a Carbine exclusive roundtable. This is round number 27. Holy moly. When I first started doing the Dispatchers Roundtable, I didn't know how far it was going to go or how long we were going to be doing this, but there's so many different topics that we can talk about in 911. And for all of you who are watching, listening, sharing, and supporting, which thank you so very much. You know, you're able to get all of this for free and to join in on all these discussions. You know, we're doing this live, and you can watch it as many times as you want. And we are on Facebook, LinkedIn Live, YouTube Live, as well as Twitter Live. So those are all out there. Thank you for joining us. Make sure to share this broadcast on your page as well as your favorite dispatchers page. And let's get some more people to come in here. So as always, with the live broadcast that I do, a roll call. Where are you watching from? And how's everything going? Please make sure to throw in some reactions as well. The more reactions and shares and such that we get, the more it goes out through that, it affects the algorithm for Facebook, and more people are able to see it as well. So I'm excited to be back for round 27, and also shout out to patrons as always for everything. Thank you so very much. You can become a patron on patreon.com/WTT podcast. And I'm going to pull my guests up here, and then we are going to start with our topic for today. And that topic is on location, and it's going to be fun. There's going to be a lot of different things that we're going to be talking about here, and we were already joking about some of the stuff earlier, and so this is going to be fun. Again, this is on location. This is going to be educational, but we're going to have some fun, and you're going to learn some shit. So here we go. This is going to be good. So again, I'm excited. My first guest and she's been on before. I would say she's like a season. She's a regular on a lot of the stuff that I've been doing, live broadcasts and so many other things. So my good friend, always awesome here, is Roxy Van Gundy, and she's a director out in Lyon County 911 out of Kansas. What is going on? What? Oh,
myself. Ooh,
there you are.
here I am live. How's it going?
It is going well. How about yourself?
I'm great. It's cold here. It was 80 yesterday and it's going to snow tonight. So, Kansas.
What the hell, man?
I don't know.
Mother Nature's trashed.
She's a little hangry.
Right? She's like, what the hell is going on?
Yeah.
It looks like it's Wednesday, so it looks like you and I, bam, that's what I'm talking about. That's right. That's right. On Wednesdays, we wear 911 Wonder Women. Shout out to Sarah and 911 Wonder Women Inc. And our next guest here is going to be Jenna Barrington, and she's a customer success manager out of Carbine. Hello. And she's frozen. And so Jenna is currently on location. She's working, and she is in a different area right now. And oh, there she goes. So we're dealing with the internet. Yeah, the internet is going out. I see that here now. It just popped up. Hello.
Hi, how's it going?
It is going well. It's good to have you here, to have you on, especially representing Carbine and such. And as I was telling everyone, you're on location right now. So the way you had put it, you are at the mercy of their Wi-Fi.
I am, yes. Far West Texas.
Yeah. So our next guest here and our final panelist is going to be Brook Shannon, and he is with National NINA. He is the Interoperability Program Manager. What is going on, my friend?
Man, happy to be here, man. I am stoked. And it's one of my favorite topics, location.
Yes, this is going to be good. Like ever since you and I met, like we've had some conversations on like GIS stuff and location and just like a bunch of different things, especially at the time that you and I were co-workers. There was a lot of stuff that we were doing together and just kind of sitting back, having a nice drink or whichever, and just talking shop. And it's always compelling, man, to talk with you. And as Roxy was saying too, you guys are on a call every week, and I think you said it the same way, right? He says something compelling every single time.
#smart guy. Yeah.
There you go. Well, this is going to be awesome. We've got a bunch of people who are jumping in here in the comments already, and I want to make sure to say again, even though that I typed it in, just in case you didn't see it because it passed up already, but those who are watching right now live, if you have any questions or comments or anything, please make sure to put it in the comments, and we will go over those as well, because again, as I was saying, we are here to talk about location and a bunch of other stuff. But now that everybody is on screen with me, let's throw in the intro music for the Dispatchers Roundtable. Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to the Dispatchers Roundtable. All right. This is good because a lot of the times that I have been doing the Dispatchers Roundtable, I forget to do that one little intro that's there. That's only a few seconds. I always remember the other one, of course, because I got to get the promos and everything in there. But then we just go right into the discussion. So I'm glad I had it on cue, and I was ready to go with it because that intro always makes me laugh. So let's talk about location. I want to start with what it was like in the beginning. So I would like for each one of you, actually before that, some introductions. So for those who are joining us who might not know each one of you, if you can give kind of a little bit of background, a summary on your public safety experience. Roxy, let's start with you, please.
Okay, well, my name is Roxy Van Gundy. I have been in public safety for 17 years. I currently direct 12 of the most amazing people in the world at my center. This is the center that I started in, so I really always feel very proud to say that I'm leading my home center because not a lot of people do. In the middle of my time here, I got the harebrained idea to drive 4,000 miles north and move to Alaska. So I spent about 4 years with the Alaska State Troopers in Fairbanks, which is the most northern city that has any kind of population. So that was a really, really amazing experience and helped me to kind of learn a different type of dispatch. I currently serve on the National NINA Wellness Committee, and I'm also the Kansas NINA president. So
Perfect. Well, thank you for being here with us, and we're gonna hear a little bit about some of the stuff that was that you dealt with and everything in Alaska too, as we're getting more into this and talking about this topic of location and all. Jenna, you're next. You're up.
All right. So my name is Jenna Barrington. I currently work for Carbine 911 as a customer success manager. But before I did that, I started as a dispatcher in Central Texas in 2015. So in a lot of ways, I'm still very new to the industry, but it feels like I've been here forever. And then after being a dispatcher, I moved over into 911 program management. So I was managing like 911 infrastructure and operations, finance, training. And then from there, I went and did operations in Central Texas for capital area. So have a little bit of experience in all the different areas of the industry.
That is excellent. And now, as you were saying, you're now working with Carbine as a customer success manager. And as we said before, you're on location. So this is awesome. This is dedication. Well done. Well done.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for being on. And
Thank you.
Brooks, your turn now, my friend.
Thank you. Thank you. So my name is Brook Shannon, Interoperability Program Manager here at NINA, the 911 Association. I've been in public safety for 18 years, never in a operations capacity, always on the vendor's side. So I'm always just amazed at the jobs that telecommunicators do. It is just phenomenal. I started as a software engineer fresh out of college, working for a company that no longer exists, but I was there for 10 years. Got kind of gobbled up in the acquisition phase of things. It was a small little outfit out of Bismarck, North Dakota called Bullberry Systems. And I was a GIS developer. I did 911 PSAT mapping applications, data editing tools, in-vehicle mapping systems, and then got into next generation 911 stuff, the emergency call routing function and the location validation function. That's how I got involved with NINA standards development. Fast forward a few years, I stopped writing code on a daily basis and became a product manager over at a company called Geocom. Did that for 4 years over there. Met a lot of really great friends, worked on a lot of really great technology. Again, all GIS with a geospatial location-based services focus. Went over to where you and I used to hang out, Ricardo, in digital for a little while. Then met this character named Steven Rauscher and ended up over at, most recently, Rapid Deploy, where I was VP of Product and VP of GIS before I came here to NINA. So, what I do in my day-to-day here at NINA is I focus on some interoperability projects with a commission called the NG911 Interoperability Oversight Commission. We can dive down in the rabbit hole of that if we would care to at some point. It's really just focusing on inter-ESI net data transfers and making sure that the networks are interoperable. I also manage this thing called the NINA Enhanced PSAP Registry and Census, which if some folks have been using it, I think that's great. Yeah, it's an easy way to be able to discover contact information for any PSAP in the U.S. It's free to PSAPs, and I would highly recommend folks check it out if you haven't seen it yet. So thanks again, Ricardo, for being able to be here today, talk about location, which is very near and dear to my heart.
Well, I'm excited, man. This is going to be awesome. And you mentioned that first company that you worked for that no longer exists. And I remember years ago when I was first working within digital, I ended up traveling to a center to look at a demo and talk to some folks out there. And I remember that day I was actually I caught some sort of stomach bug. And that's why I will never forget that company, because of that stomach bug and how horrible it was. And I'm sitting there going through the demo and just like sweating, thinking that I'm going to die. And I remember at the end of that day, I called the boss and told them what had happened. And they're like, yeah, you're not driving home because we don't want you to die. Like, we don't want you to crash or anything. So you need to find a hotel and stay there. And I remember going to the hotel, and it was in the afternoon, and I slept all day until the next day. And I woke up with like one of those, where am I? What is going on? I didn't even know where I was at. So the fact that we're talking about location and going back to that time when I didn't know anywhere where I was at, it was pretty crazy. So thank you for that flashback. I will never forget that company name. But let's get into this here now. So let's talk about what location was like in the beginning, because I'm pretty sure that each one of us have, and those who are watching right now in the comments as well, I'm going to be looking to you for this, for your own explanation, your own experience on what location was like for you, dealing with, dispatching out, taking phone calls, cell phone calls coming in. And because we all started at a different time, I started in 2001, Jenna says she started in 2015. So, the whole concept of location is completely different. So I'm going to go back to Roxy to start out. Let's talk about location. What was it like for you in the beginning?
So in the beginning, I started in 2005, and we were kind of on the cusp of phase 1 and phase 2 transition. I remember for a lot of years, we were lucky if we could maybe get 3 miles of where somebody was. We spent a lot of time on the phone trying to ping calls and figure out where people were, because it just wasn't available really. So phase 2 was a big deal when it came to pass, and it started to get better and better. I'm pretty lucky in Kansas. We've always been pretty forward thinking on technology. And so we always had a lot of really good tools, but phase 2 was like a game changer for us, because, you were getting closer and closer to these callers, and you were watching too the transition from landlines to cell phones. So it was kind of in that time where more and more people were picking up steam and getting cell phones. And it really was not always easy. We would get calls that we could never really be sure if we were sending people to the right place, just kind of throwing something at a problem and hoping it sticks. So,
and that's always a scary moment though, right? When you've got that's coming in and all, and you're trying to figure out where someone is, and you're just listening to all of the screaming and stuff that's going on. And like you said, man, it's something else.
Well, and I think we all kind of relied on landline services and that Annie Alley data. We were really confident in Annie Alley data, and we knew that 123 Main Street was it.
Yes.
And as people started using cell phones more, I think it really kind of made 911 a little off its axis, and we had to get our footing on, how do we determine locations for these types of callers? So it was a little scary to chart through.
Right. And especially because people are looking to us for that help, right? And assuming that we know exactly where they are at all times. And it wasn't like that. When you end up saying, when it slips out, I don't know where you're at, and then it makes them freak out even more. You're like, oh, okay, next time I won't say that. or try to figure out a different way to say that without being so maybe slightly dramatic. But looking over here in the comments, Gary, he says 1997 I started with phase 0. We were happy to just capture a cell number.
Yeah. I mean, when I worked in Alaska, that's really how it was. We didn't have anything. We didn't have any alley. We didn't have anything. So I definitely understand Gary's perspective, because it's very, very unnerving to not know where something's going on.
Yeah, exactly. And also for the panelists that are on here as well, as you're each telling your experience, please jump in with anything to build upon that as well. If you have something, I'm just looking here in the comments really quick as we're starting this out. Lone here says, I will teach all the dispatchers my location rule: rebid quickly and until you get a phase 2 location, because they are better, but still not completely reliable. But yeah, you're getting that phase 2, hopefully getting the phase 2, and it definitely is a lot better. Kim here says, it was a personal struggle of mine. Maps helped. However, getting out there and driving around and learning the area and landmarks helped me the most.
We still do that, Kim. Like, even with all the technology we have now, that is something that we force our new hires to do, because I want them to have a visual. If somebody calls them and says, hey, I'm at this place, I want them to be able to see that in their head. So that's
Right.
great.
So I want to go over here to Jenna. I believe we have her on audio at least. Maybe. I know she was having a little bit of issues with her internet, but I'm going to send her a message here in a moment. I'm going to go over here to Brooks. So for you, when you started and everything, what was the location and everything like for you?
You know, it was really in that period of time, like Roxy talked about, between phase one and phase two deployments, right? Getting in from the vendor side of the house, I had no idea really how 911 worked and how it was powered, and I had no idea who Annie and Allie were, but I certainly found out exactly what those
Right.
things were. Um, and I remember, thinking that, man, you see in the movies that, 911 centers must have like drones they can dispatch to get like live action footage from wherever they need to be, and all of this kind of minority report technology stuff. And I was, quite surprised to see what it was really like. Um, but seeing the benefits of phase two was really something else. When I worked at that small outfit, Bullberry Systems,
Mhm.
we had, a dozen employees, and as a software engineer, I also went out and it did the bulk of our 911 center implementations. And I remember one of the very first times I went out, I was out in Western Montana, and I had deployed our mapping software on one day and then came back the next day to help train up the staff. And I had come in the morning, and there was the night shift getting off in the morning. And I said, well, did you guys have a chance to mess around with the map now that it can plot phase two locations? And one of the TCs on staff said, yeah, I did. And this thing is just amazing. She said, we had a gal call 911 last night. She had, a young mother. She had went back to check on her child, her baby, in the crib, hadn't heard, anything, went out, come to find out that here the baby in the crib is blue, not breathing, who knows for how long. So she dials 911, but she's, so upset that she can't even relay her address. But the phase two uncertainty was tight enough that they were able to figure out within a 4-house radius on that block where that gal was. And I don't know what the outcome was of her daughter, unfortunately, but even just knowing that in such a moment of need where you are so upset that you can't even speak what your home address is, that phase two could help. I mean, I still get goosebumps thinking about that. That was one of the very earliest PSAP visits I had, where I could really see that in action. And to see where we are today with even more accurate phase two locations, as well as device-based hybrid, as well as Z-axis, like we're just taking it up levels and levels and levels. It's super exciting.
That's your story. It gives me goosebumps. Like, it's a good feeling because I remember having similar calls where we're trying to track down where this person might be, and hoping for the rebid to bring back that phase two, and then when it did, it's that, oh, I think we got something. And so then you're relaying as fast as possible, and you're looking at the map, and you're trying to see which house it might be. And if we had more information in the in-house, of course that helps as well. But you go on what you have. But when you have that moment where you're at the right house and they call over the radio and they say, we've got them, man, just tears. Like, you're like, we did it. Like, we found them, we were able to
Yeah.
get them. And early on, that's how a lot of that stuff went. Going to Jenna now. What was your location like in the beginning? Because as you said in your intro, you started out in dispatch and everything. So during that time, 2015, what was location like for you starting out?
Well, I do remember when I was in training and, I was being taught to rebid. But even then, that wasn't that long ago, but I wasn't being trained properly. And I think that's one of the issues with location is sometimes it gets passed down in a way that's not quite correct. And I remember being on a call, we couldn't get accurate location and I hadn't immediately started rebidding. And I got in a lot of trouble about it. And what I realize now is, it's important to rebid, but you have to rebid properly and not, disrupt the process of dipping into that database. And I think that's something that is sometimes not told to a dispatcher. But location now, working for Carbine has been really exciting because being in rural Texas, there's a lot of location issues and triangulation issues with cell towers. And I think what we've been able to do, and a lot of the success stories that we've had, where especially out here in West Texas, we have people that are lost out in Big Bend or in the mountains, and the device-based location that we have now is a game changer. So just in that short amount of time, how we've advanced location is incredible. And even for me, not having been in the industry all that long, even when I started, I was like, this is crazy. It's crazy that we're still dealing with this, that we can't find people. And I remember even telling people, if you really want to make sure that your location is known, you need to get a landline. Like, that was a few years ago that I was telling my family and friends that, if you really want to be sure someone shows up, you need to get a landline. So the fact that we're moving past that is really impressive.
It is. It's definitely impressive, and just the way everything is advancing. Before we go any further, however, I want to go back here to a quick question. And Brooks, this will go to you. Lone had mentioned the NINA interoperability PSAP list. Is that available online, or where can people find that?
It is available online, and again, it's free to access if you are within the PSAP, and you can find more information about that at nina.org/EPRC. And if you have any questions, of course, feel free to reach out to me afterwards as well. I think it's a wonderful tool that every PSAP should have at the ready in case you do get an out of area call and need to figure out how to contact that PSAP where that person really truly is located.
Awesome. Now, I want to go back to Jenna here really quick, to the point that you were making here as well about not being trained properly, like on rebids and location and all this other stuff. What do you think it is, or um, how can we change that? Because maybe some of that stuff is still going on. Is it just that there are some higher ups or trainees or whichever, or trainers rather, that don't have a grasp of the concept, or what do you think it might be? And Roxy, you can jump into this as well. But I wanted to ask Jenna first, because you were the one who brought this up, because it's your story. It's part of your story.
Yeah, so I mean, one of the great things I think is making it automatic, if it's being done in the background and not actually
Mhm.
putting that on a call taker to have to rebid. If it's happening in the background, it's doing it for them, and then that way the location is just automatically updating. I think that that's going to be really important moving forward. But other than that, making sure that I don't think that we do a great job at explaining the background of the technology, and I think that's probably part of it, is that trainers don't train because they don't really know. They were trained a certain way, and then they're
Mhm.
just passing it down. So being sure that everybody understands the technology, everybody understands why it is done a certain way and what it's doing. When you hit rebid, do you know what it's doing? I mean, that's an important part of that. So I think, it's the education part of that.
Excellent. And Roxy?
I was never taught that. I learned it on my own. But I think that some of it is we have a warped sense of time during a call like that. So I think as far as, not giving it the time to rebid, sometimes I think it's just operator error because we're so stuck in that tunnel of what's happening in the call. But I was never taught anything about rebidding, nothing about phase two, because I just don't think people really knew what to teach us about it.
Right.
So I think Jenna's right. It's not being taught because I think people don't really know. I mean, it's just that it's back burner stuff versus what all the other things we need to teach people.
Yeah, I agree as well, because I remember being in dispatch and working midnights, and would have a carrier call up on 911 and say, "Hey, this is so and so with whichever carrier. I just want to see if this came in phase two." And I remember during those times, I would sit there and be like, "What are they? What? what are you doing? And because no one ever told me,
Nope.
I knew the phase one and phase two and what it was all about, but them going through and testing and doing all this other stuff, like I wanted to learn more, but then I also wondered why don't I know more? Why am I not being taught more? But again, it's probably because there were others that didn't know and didn't know how to explain it. But those were some of the things that I remember, especially because I was doing a lot of online schooling. So I would be doing this at work and then getting these phone calls, and they would just be saying, can you tell me if it came in phase two? No, rebid. Okay. Did it come in this time? What are the coordinates? And just going over and over and over and over. And one time I actually did ask the person, and they gave me this huge response, and I said thank you, because I didn't know.
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Well, and I could see too, from a trainer's perspective and playing devil's advocate, there's a lot of things that we have to, teach folks that are really difficult and really overwhelming, for a trainee, and to add technology and all of this technical stuff and trying to explain it as a layman. I mean, I'm no Brooke Shannon by no means. So, I mean, to try to have to explain that to somebody and have them really understand it while they're already pushing all of that information in their minds, I mean, I can see where people shy away from it for sure.
Right. Now, going to Brooks here, because I'm looking at a message here, and I want to know more as well. It's not just phase one or phase two. There are others as well. Are you able to kind of explain some of those that are on the way?
Yeah, it's funny because very often still when I go out and visit 911 centers where frankly I feel like I'm most at home on the PSAP floor. It's like I'll run into call takers and dispatchers who, again, still don't really know much about the difference between phase one and phase two. So when we have additional classes of service on the way, WCVC, WDL1, WDL2, well, what the heck do those mean, right? Working on education is going to be of paramount importance here, right? Back in 2015, the FCC forged ahead with location accuracy rules, not only for X and Y, which is what we're dealing with today in phase one and phase two, but vertical on the Z axis as well. And over the last few years, they've refined that, and they've worked with the carriers to establish metrics and rules by which the carriers will adhere to providing locations within those accuracy boundaries. And we're seeing that today, right? As you may have noticed, your wireless phase two uncertainties are probably getting a little bit smaller. There's some carriers that actually use that device-based hybrid location from the handset to augment or literally just pass through the location. So instead of doing, cell tower triangulation or GPS methods to determine the location of a caller, it's actually from the handset. It's the same blue dot you get if you fire up the mapping application on your phone. We've seen those numbers decrease, but we're also seeing Z come across as well. And getting back to those three new classes of service I mentioned, WCVC, DL1, and DL2. As humans, we don't think about, as we all know, location in X, Y, and Z. We think about location in terms of address, floor, unit, room, etc. Right? So Nina recommended and added to a standard the additional classes of service, WCVC, WDL1, and WDL2 to deal with that. It gets back to that notion of dispatchable addresses, dispatchable locations, right? Which the FCC defines as a street address of a caller plus additional information, such as floor level, to identify the 911 caller's location. Well, Nina recognized that just looking at an address doesn't really tell you how believable it is, how accurate it is, right? How fine grained it is. So they looked at saying, well, just a plain old civic street address, if it's for a wireless caller and the carrier sent along a dispatchable address, or we came up with this address on the service provider side, that's going to be the WCVC. It's good. The better one is WDL1. That means maybe you have a floor level in addition to the building address. WDL2 might give you the room. So it's this kind of good, better, best model. And understanding where that's all heading amongst this whole discussion about Z-axis and 3D GIS and everything else, I think is really important to make sure that everybody in the center understands the information that they have at their disposal, especially since that location can change quite rapidly, um, so that we can accurately locate the callers.
Saving time, saving seconds, getting up in there. Thank you for defining those, because when I saw that in the notes there, I was like, I'm sorry. So, but this is good, because that's why these conversations, these roundtables are excellent, so that we can learn more, and those who are watching, they can learn more as well. And I'm sure there's someone who is sitting there like, oh gosh, what? But there's also a light at the end of the tunnel, because it's that much more accurate that we'll be able to find people when they're calling, instead of, someone calling in and they're like, oh, we might be in this room. I'm not sure what room we're in. And then you got to try to figure it out. And so this is really good. Now, before we get into a little bit more of, the Z axis and stuff, or the roadmap of making Z actionable, I want to share a few stories here, really quick. So I want to go back to Roxy, because you being in Alaska, I can't even imagine what that was like with trying to get some of the locations out there. Because as we talked, you can do geo rides and everything, but I mean, it's hard to do it in some of the more rural areas. So
Yeah.
let's hear some stories here.
So, when I say that a lot of Alaska is not mapped, it's not. The municipalities like Anchorage and Fairbanks, they do have 911 addressing and a GIS department and all of that. But where I worked was mostly in bush areas and villages and out in the wilderness. So, one story that I think really hits home with location, and I will give you the cliff notes, but I'm not sure how many of you have watched the movie Into the Wild. That bus that is the subject of that movie was in my jurisdiction. And so every summer, spring, when it started to melt and the land got walkable, people would try to hike to that bus. And of course, like all 911 calls, it's not the people who are skilled in hiking or understand hiking or have any experience whatsoever in long range hiking in the wilderness. And I remember I got a call from a man who English was definitely not his first language. I learned later was a French man, who had come to that area with his Swiss girlfriend, and they had watched this movie and wanted to go see the bus in real life. Well, when he called 911, he rang into our village line, which had no Annie Alley, had no mapping. I had no idea where he was calling from. And he was screaming that they were going to drown. And before you get to this bus, there's a large river that runs right in front of the hill. And you climb up the hill and there's the bus. So they were almost there. And they had thrown a rope across a slim part of the river. And they were going to carry that rope and try to pull themselves across. Well, the current came up and started to push them away. He could not tell me where they were. And he kept screaming, I can't hold on to her any longer. I can't hold on to her. And he said, Claire, please hold on. And their hands are wet. And he's like, please help me. Please send me help. Please. And I didn't know where they were. So I had a guess of where they they might have entered the river, just from experience. But I had no idea where they had floated to. I had no idea how far downriver they were. And he was on his cell phone, which, at that point in time, I think I could have gotten a general area at least to send a helicopter and a trooper to. But we just didn't have that. And something that I'm really passionate about is I took away from that call, Miss Ackerman, she died. She drowned in front of her boyfriend, on the phone with me. And something that I took from that is that when you go from somewhere that had phase 2 and a map solution, and you had something, and you go to some place that has nothing, I think that that's a wellness component because I didn't have the tools to do my job that I knew were out there, so I think that, that's something to consider, if you're not in a place where you can do NG 911, or you don't live, in an area that provides that, you're not giving your folks the tools to do their jobs. And I think that's a call that sticks with me today. And as a result of that, they actually called Sean Penn, who directed that movie, and asked for the prop bus so they could put it in the town to try to get people to stop going out there, because we were getting those calls all the time and we couldn't find these people. And that's a huge burden to put on dispatchers. I still remember that call like it was yesterday, and she passed away about 15 years ago. So I think that's a good example of where location really can go south and, impact your telecommunicators.
Do you know if things have changed there? Like, have there been upgrades? Like,
No, and it's very difficult because the terrain that we work in is just, it's hard to map. There's so
Yeah.
many little trails and dog sled trails, and, villages have 0 911 addressing. And it's a lot of little telephone providers that don't have the money to invest in those types of things. They just don't. So there's a lot of people that are still struggling with that same problem I struggled with 15 years ago.
I love, though, that you share this story, and thank you so much for sharing this as well. That even though it feels like it was just yesterday that this happened, you're able to carry this, but also have this example for those that work with you now, or if you wanted some part of newer technology or whatever that's coming out, you're able to be able to portray this story and let them know, like, making it personal, like, we need this. We need
Yeah.
this type to be able to find people.
And
This
would
is what
anything
happened before.
and would anything have changed? No, probably not. What was meant to be was probably already decided.
Mhm.
But the fact that I didn't have all the tools that I could put to use to help in that situation, that's a super helpless feeling. And I think we talk all the time about wellness and, what's impacting our telecommunicators. They need the tools to do their job, and that's technology too.
Right. Exactly. I want to go into the comments here really quick because, um, and I love how passionate you are with not just in this industry, but the way you portray your stories and everything. And I just want to put this on here, up on the screen and everything, because as you were talking, you had the audience reaching out to you and all. And this one here says, Roxy, you're so passionate about this job, and I appreciate that. Thank you for sharing your stories in order to make this job real for others, so that they have the drive to be more and do more in this profession. Thank you.
Guys.
Jenna, I want to go over to you. You kind of mentioned a story earlier. You're talking about Amanda, but you had a couple other stories as well, as we're talking about location.
Yeah, so it's been a really incredible opportunity for me to spend time out in West Texas. They just moved over to their ESINet i3 compliant new cloud-based solution. And one of the things that we get to do is device-based location. So out here, it's the West Texas mountains. It's very close to the U.S.-Mexico border. So they have a lot of stories of migrants crossing the border and getting lost out in the desert and the mountains for days, and just being stranded. And a few weeks ago, I had a dispatcher telling me that they had someone call, and he had actually driven his truck out into the desert on a dirt road. All 4 of his tires had popped, and he was there for 2 days. No water, nothing. And a lot of the time he couldn't get a call through. But when he did, they were able to pinpoint his location. But the problem was they were having a hard time getting to him. And because it's really rough terrain out here. So they ended up having to send a helicopter. And it makes me think about Z-Access, because the way that out here, they're able to determine what kind of vehicle they need to get to somebody. It's not just a unit, in a truck. Do they need all-terrain vehicles? Do they need a helicopter? And in the same vein is water rescues. So we also have some stories about people out on the water and with Z-Access being able to determine, is this something that needs a full water rescue, or is this person on a bridge that's just over the water? So when we're talking about the way that location is developing and the way that you can send responses, it's faster, and it's more accurate. So you can save someone's life just by being able to pinpoint where they are and then determine how you can go get them. So, I mean, that's been a really, really cool thing to see out here in West Texas. And I know that it's greatly improved how they've been able to save people's lives.
Yeah, that's that's definitely a good thing because I mean, that's one of the things that we need, right? We need to know exactly the type of response to send, whether it be marine units or those who are just, on the beach, on quads or whichever. But if it's a marine unit and they're actually out in the water, it's better to have that right off the bat than not, because again, you're going to have the wrong response type, and then you're just wasting more time, right? So it's good that we have all of this here. There's a question here in the from the audience that I want to ask really quick before we go further, as we talk about the roadmap of making Z actionable or useful in the PSAP for all first responders. But the question here comes out. It says, oh, another comment came up, so I got to scroll up here. It says, how can technology help locate a moving caller if the caller hangs up? And this is for any one of you who would like to jump in.
So that's a pretty interesting question. If a person calls 911 from a mobile device, say it's a iOS handset or an Android handset, both of those can provide device-based hybrid location. Sometimes, although not necessarily guaranteed, you might receive a location for a few minutes after the call is released. You may still see location updates every 5 seconds or every 10 seconds. In the absence of that, there's really no way to reach out and ping the location of the phone once that call has been released otherwise. So there you're probably talking about getting into exigent circumstances territory where you have to get a hold of the carrier and try to see where they believe that caller now is. But in the world we live in today with device-based hybrid location, fortunately, a lot of devices now are capable of providing that location in high percentages. And oftentimes you will see location come in for a little while after the call has been released.
So Ricardo, if I can
Go
step
ahead.
in on this one, actually,
Yeah,
being
sure.
that it's a Carbine exclusive. So Carbine actually has a feature that we can manually send out a link. So if a caller drops, we can still send out a link to that caller. And if they click on the link, we then are able to establish a new session that gives us their device-based location. So that's a huge thing in the industry because it's outbound. If you lose someone, you can reach out to them in a way that still gets their location. And then that way, if they're moving, you can see how they're moving.
Yeah, that's it's definitely a good thing. When I was working within digital, their texting platform, since I think, I don't know, 2015 or 2016, something like that, doing the outbounds and everything, the location part on there that was added to it, there was something similar where after the session had been disconnected, we could still be able to do kind of a rebid on that location to kind of follow them on the map. But it was only for a certain amount of time, and you would have to have another session come in to keep that going. So to have that ability to keep it going that way, that is excellent. Now with Roxy, how does this work for you all? Because I know you do a lot of stuff that's similar, or things that you use rather. How do
We do a
you do
lot
it
of
there
stuff.
in Lyon County?
Yeah, so we have two mapping platforms, just because we have found success with each of them,
Mhm.
using them together. But we actually had a recent save with a caller who had called in, had threatened some things and then hung up, and we were able to keep that call for about 10 minutes and get people to her location. So some of that after the caller has hung up is been invaluable for us.
Mhm.
We really rely on, the location from our rapid deploy maps and our rapid SOS maps for everything. You know, we can tell deputies, hey, I see him continuing on to this milepost, or he got off on this road, and it gives us way more information that we can give our responders. So just having that little bit of time afterwards has really been helpful. And we've also been texting 911 callers that call us and hang up. We've been texting them and just saying, hey, your phone just hung up, is everything okay? And we're getting tons of responses back. So having that ability to reach out to them after the call, especially on a texting platform, I feel like we're connecting with so many more people.
I wanna ask here really quick, because when I was still working with the other company before I went on my own, that was another thing that we saw, was that there are way more people who are responding to a text versus the phone call.
Yeah.
Why do you think that is? Some of them, some people had a theory that kind of feel like they're a little more, oh, how would you say it? A little more anonymous, kind of, because it's just their phone, and just texting. It's not like their voice, or they're not possibly not finding them or whatever. But there were all these different theories. So I'm just curious what you think. Why do you think people answer more on texting than when you call?
Well, I agree with that. And I think that people are somewhat embarrassed when we call them back and they're like, "Oh, I called 911." You know, so it does give that little bit of anonymity, but also for people like me who screen calls, it's an easy way for us to say, "Hey, we're 911 and this is why we're contacting you."
Mhm.
Instead of just putting us to voicemail. So I think we're a text cell phone based universe now, so it's just easier for people and more natural for them to respond that way.
Yeah, it looks like there's some folks that are, agreeing as well. Lone here says, that is actually my personal standard on all hang up calls. I call the number back, then send a texting message to confirm no problems and get caller information for future calls.
Yeah,
So,
that's a recent policy change here, so everyone is
mhm.
required to do that.
Yeah, in the state of Indiana, it was everyone changed their policy as well to do, they still call, but they would text first. They would do an outbound text, and they would make contact first and everything, and then they would call, and all that other good stuff. But I thought, man, what craziness that it's, for a good reason, though, everything being good, that
Sure.
all of these policies would change, because you're saving a lot of resources as well, right?
Right. And on the front end, even with all of this technology, they're now able to say, I show you at whatever address, is that correct? So they can also say that in our greeting, if people don't really know what their exact address is.
Mhm.
So it's been a game changer both on the front end and on the back end, having that location technology and being able to trust that and know that it's highly accurate has really been great for us.
Now, I want to look back in here on, into the comments before we get to these next couple of pieces that we're going to be going over. And one of the questions here is, can technology track a caller if they call the admin line, not 911? And Jenna, I can go to you for this.
Yes. So, I mean, there are different ways to do that. I mean, what I know is Carbine, so I'll speak from Carbine's point of view.
Mhm.
So with Carbine, what we can do is we can outbound, even with an admin line. If we call them or if we send them a link, we can receive their location, even if it was via admin line and not 911. So there is technology in place that can do that, track a caller if they're calling on an admin line.
Now, this is good too, because I think back to when I was in dispatch, and there were a few times, and I swear sometimes it still slightly haunts me, because people would call, and this old phone system that we had on an admin, even on an admin line, we didn't have caller ID. So if somebody called in on a certain line and they said that, they were suicidal and they hung up, there's no way we could find them. And there were a few times where there were calls that I had taken, and I remember sitting there praying for that person to call back, somehow, so that I could get an address, so I could get somebody out there, just anything like that. And eventually we got caller ID. The thing that sucked though was that it was the little screen that the caller ID came on for this old phone system that had been there since I believe 94. That's how old that system was. And they have changed. It has changed since I left there. But the caller ID, if you didn't take that number down, there was no memory on it. Like you couldn't go back to see the phone number. So even like with this technology, we wouldn't have that phone number available, and people would call in. They'd say, "I want to kill myself." All right, where are you located? What's your address? Let's go, and then click, and you're like, please God, this person needs to call 911. One of them never did, but another one did call on 911, and we were able to get them help. But that one, man, it always bothers me. And maybe that person ended up calling later on and I just wasn't there, but I'll never know. And that's why it's haunting. And it sucks. But to be able to have this ability to, contact people and be able to get some sort of location, even on an admin line, that is great. Now, Brooks, in your experience, talking about this technology that's similar with admin lines, what are some of the things that you've heard or experienced with different places that you have visited, or just being on different calls?
Yeah, it's a really great point. I mean, even if it's someone calling in from the radio technology like this, from Carbine and others as well. I know, Rapid Deploy offers similar technology, and I think there's others that have it too. Is that ability to just say, we're going to send out a link um, that someone can receive via SMS, click on it, and so long as you have a data connection, we can get that location sent back into the PSAP. That can be done against any telephone number, right? So someone could call an admin line on behalf of somebody else and say, you know what, this person has been missing for 2 days. We have no idea where they are. And instead of doing an exigent circumstances request with the mobile carrier, they just decide, what the heck, let's try sending them an SMS and see if this works. And there was an instance where a teenager had ran away from home and it actually worked, where the teen responded to it, was willing to share their location, and they found where he was. So, having that capability, I think, is tremendous, right? Because we're still in a transition period where we're not fully NG 911 compliant across the country, and even when we are, right, someone calls an admin line, there's no guarantee we're going to be able to get their location, right? So having those alternative mechanisms as backup tools so that you do have the tools at the ready, I think is really important.
Fully agree. I want to stick with you here for a moment because we were talking about this roadmap to making Z actionable or useful in the PSAP for all first responders. So I got to ask, what's that roadmap look like, man?
That's a really great question, right? And I'll try to keep this one short, being mindful of time. Is that last year the FCC worked out a compromise with the big three wireless carriers through these consent decrees, where they would work to start delivering Z-axis elevation data along with 911 callers when available to PSAPs all across the country. So that's available today. If your ALI format supports it and you want access to that data is there. That being said, when you get a wireless 911 call that includes X, Y, and Z, that altitude, as it's often called in ALI, is not a height above ground. It's a measurement in meters above the ellipsoid. And without getting too far down the rabbit hole of geodesy and GIS and what that all means, it's a approximation of the Earth's surface as an ellipse, not a circle, because the globe is like an ellipsoid. That is not at all ground level, and sometimes it's not even close. So that measurement to a human really doesn't. It's not helpful at all. Humans don't really think about our relative height above something in terms of that mathematical approximation of the shape of the Earth. What we think about is height above ground, right? Am I 20 feet above ground? Am I 100 feet above ground? Am I on that bridge, or am I on the surface of the water? how can that affect response, right? So I think the first thing in that roadmap to actually making Z-axis information actionable in public safety is getting that value converted to a height above terrain or height above ground value, and doing nothing more than just having a number that you can show. So you know they're 10 meters above ground, 50 meters above ground, what have you. There's vendors that are working on that today, and I would highly encourage everybody to reach out to your vendors, and ask what their plans are for that, because I think that's really important. The number doesn't do a heck of a lot of good unless you have that capability. I know of one 911 authority who actually went so far as to develop a little web application that they could just manually type the number into to do a conversion. They had a software developer crank this out, and I thought that was really awesome. And to be able to have that directly embedded with call taking systems, I think is going to be very, very important. Once you have that, though, now you can start to do some interesting things, right? You could show that location in 3 dimensions on a 3-dimensional map. That opens up a whole nother can of worms around what's it going to take to build that 3D data. Do you build the 3D data just for select buildings within your jurisdiction? What kind of software do you need to view that map in 3 dimensions, along with a even just a rough sketch of what the building looks like without a detailed floor plan or something? And there's a number of vendors in the space that are working on that as well. And Nina's been doing some work to define what the requirements need to be for making it actionable in a PSAP setting. There's a 3D GIS requirements document that's actually out for all committee review, or public review actually right now. Excuse me, that details this in quite lengthy detail, and it's a wonderful piece of work. So we're moving towards that, but this is going to be something that I think happens over years as agencies start to develop their own roadmaps for the data that's needed, the software that's needed, as well as the systems that are needed to tie it all together beyond having that initial conversion to a height above ground value.
Man, there's so much stuff that is on the way. I know I've said this many times, but I'm going to say this again. And Roxy, if you're hiring, I might end up over there. But sometimes I get a little jealous because of all of this amazing technology that's out there, and it sucks that I didn't have that when I was in dispatch. But sometimes I want to jump back in, at least for part-time, so that I can put all of this to use and have that satisfaction that I didn't always have when I was in dispatch. Like I said, that one that kind of sticks with me. Whatever happened to that person, I don't know. But I do want to look in the comments here too. Kimberly here says, I just got to say, I'm so proud and in awe of how far 911 has improved over the years and how it's improving every single day. I fully agree there. Now we're just over the hour, but I want to go into the wrap up here, and I want to look towards the future and just see, because Brooks, you were kind of talking about this already. A lot of the stuff that's in development already, stuff that's here, but stuff that is on the way. But what are you each, I guess, excited about when it comes to location and some of this new technology that's coming in? Roxy, let's go ahead and start with you.
Well, I think what I'm excited about the most is the possibility that through our phone handling, our call handling system, we're going to be able to start getting calls at these locations and actually be able to see inside that building. I can't wait for that opportunity because, we have a lot of big factories here. We have a pretty large high school here. So I think that taking that location one step further and being able to have eyes in the facility is going to be huge.
Awesome. Jenna, how about you?
So coming from the vendor side, I think the thing I'm most excited about is, and to go back to the beginning, we were talking about rebidding and education, is having the opportunity to teach people how the technology that we're developing can really make their jobs better and easier. I think that we are finally in a place where if we can take that opportunity to really teach people how the emerging technology with location, how they can use it, and not just like it exists, and like what Brooks was saying, the misconceptions. So being able to train people how it's going to help them instead of just kind of setting it out there and hoping people utilize it, or not really knowing how to utilize it. So for me, that's the most exciting part.
One of the things I want to know as well, is, how do we keep people educated? How do you continue to keep folks educated? Because there might be some out there who are just like, well, we've got this and this is how it works, and that's it. Do you have someone come in and share some of those harder personal stories? For example, like, Roxy, like the one that you shared, to be able to say, look, you don't want something like this to happen in order for you to care. You know what I mean? So how does one do
I
that? How do you continue? And of course that it's okay that technology is our friend. I see that there, and you're right. That's one of the other things, is to be able to convince people that change is good, and especially with the technology that's coming in as well.
I think a
Like
big part of that is, oh, sorry.
no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think the biggest thing is making it exciting. When you make it exciting and you make it something that this isn't going to make your job harder, this is going to make your job better. This is
Mhm.
going to give you some of that mental health and wellness back, because it's something that can fill in the gaps for some of the stuff that you're not able to do now.
And Roxy?
You have to give people a reason to buy in. You have to show them why they want this in their life, and I think that making it exciting and giving them a reason to see that it's something they should invest their time to learn will hit all dispatchers, because we do have a huge cross section of cultures, generations, different types of PSAPs. I think it's really about making them excited and getting invested.
Now, Brooks, I want to go to you as well then on here. What are some of the things that you're excited about in the future? I know this, like you said, this is a love of
Yeah.
yours, this topic. So going to you.
Yeah, this gets me fired up and excited. Just because of the benefits it can bring. I mean, if we can do things more elegantly and more in an automated way, so you don't have to sit there and think about it when you're handling a call, and just present more actionable information. Man, we live in 2022. We should be able to do this, and we need to do this, right? So, recently we started looking into at Nina this new Wi-Fi standard that came out. It's called Wi-Fi RTT. Now, it's not the same RTT that we think about in public safety real-time text.
Mhm.
It's different, but what it does is it offers a much more accurate way to locate someone's position if there are Wi-Fi RTT capable wireless access points where they are. So with this technology, if you were to say outfit a school or a government building or whatever, or a stadium with these kinds of access points, you can get down to sub-meter accuracy. So you're talking about a foot or something like that. Like, that's a tremendous game changer. Not only because it shows you, of course, where that person very likely is, but imagine it's this in a stadium. You go out and you map that stadium for sections and rows and seats, and now you know basically right where that person is. Now you can say, well, they're at section 101, row K, seat 39, right? As opposed to trying to hunt and peck and figure out where someone is. And
Right.
that rapidly developing pace of technology is absolutely wonderful. We just need to make sure we communicate that back to the people that are going to benefit from the most.
Oh, I thought someone I heard someone gasp. I thought someone was gonna add on to that. Okay. I do want to ask this really quick. And Brooks, you and I have had um experience with this as well. So Lone over here says, after listening to all this good information, can anyone answer this? On our limited resources, would texting be a way to contact and track people and get locations, or is there a better, more reliable way to do this than I am now aware of?
So it's a great question, and I think it comes back to that discussion around, even the admin lines, right? Where, Jenna from Carbine, and I know that from the prior experience, Rapid Deploy, and I think even What3Words has solutions like this as well, where you can basically send an outbound text to someone saying, can you share your location with us? And so long as they do that, then you can see where they are. Any tool you have that's capable of doing that is going to give you that capability really today. And I think it's a great way to use the technology that you have already access to, or should be able to obtain very easily to be able to do just that thing.
Awesome. Well, I want to thank all of you for being on here for this excellent round 27 of the Dispatchers Roundtable, the DRT, and for all of you here in the audience for joining us as well. Before we go off air here, Brooks, I want to start with you. How can people find out more about not only yourself, but everything that Nina is doing?
It's a really great question. I would say go to nina.org. If you want to find out a little bit more about me, feel free to reach out to me directly. My email address is bshannon@nina.org. As you can tell, I get excited about this stuff, and I'm always happy to talk.
Awesome. Excellent. And Jenna, how about you? How can people find out not only about you, but also everything that Carbine is doing, whether it be, social media, website, email, whichever. How can they find out more?
Well, Carbine is very active on social media. We have our website, and then you can find us on LinkedIn, on Instagram, on just about any social media platform. As far as me, if you are Texas based and you're going to the public safety conference this next weekend, you can always come and visit me in the booth. Otherwise, I'm on LinkedIn, or you can email me at jennab@carbine.com.
Awesome. And what booth is it that you're going to be at? Because I'll make sure to stop by and see you as well, because I'll be there next week.
I don't know the number, but it's the Carbine booth. So I'll run into you, I'm sure.
All right. Look for the dots. Look for the logo.
Yes.
It'll be there, and they'll be there, their booth, because it's all about that connection. So I'll make sure to head out there as well. And then Roxy, about you, how can people find out more about you? But also, please plug your TikTok, because you guys are killing it for real.
So we have a TikTok. It's Lyon County, just Lyon CO 911 is where you can find us. We started our TikTok this year as a way to kind of give our folks a wellness outlet and a stressor outlet, and a way to kind of peel back the curtain of the dispatch center, so people can kind of learn a little bit about dispatchers and the things we do. You can also find us on Facebook at Lyon CO 911. We have a ton of stuff there. I'm all over the socials, so feel free to message me, friend request me. I love to make new friends. I'm always willing to help wherever I can. So
awesome. Excellent. Well, again, thank you all so very much for being on. I appreciate it more than you know. And for those here being in the audience as well, this was an excellent discussion. And man, I am supercharged. I could talk a lot more, but we're past the time. and everyone's got work to do too. So we'll go ahead and wrap this up, and I will be right back here with each one of you in just one moment. But for those who are watching and listening, if you have any comments, questions, or you want to be a guest on the show, you can email us, and that'll be wttpodcast@gmail.com. That is also if you have a topic that you want to hear and discuss on the DRT. Again, you can check us out, and that'll be wttpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow us on Twitter. That is @91podcast. You can like us on Facebook. That is facebook.com/Within the Trenches Podcast. This live broadcast of the DRT has been sponsored by InDigital, Rapid Deploy, as well as Carbine, and this was an exclusive Carbine DRT. Thank you all so very much. And if you're looking for any bonus content, or you want to become a patron to help support us, check us out. And that's going to be patreon.com/WTT podcast. There are bonus episodes, perks for patrons only, are audio versions of the DRT, as well as open mic live. So make sure to check those out. And there is, as I said, bonus content. Also, you get episodes a week early, and there's so much more that comes with being a patron of the podcast. So again, check us out, patreon.com/WTT podcast. This episode can be seen on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, as well as Twitter. And then the flagship show, Within the Trenches Podcast, can be heard 24/7 on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, your favorite podcasting app, and withinthetrenches.net. Have a good one, everyone. And if you're going to be at the Texas Public Safety Conference next week, I will see you there. And I will be at booth 126. I'll be there doing a giveaway, as well as recording episodes of the podcast there with attendees. And then I have an Imagine Listening session that'll be going on April 4th, and that'll be at 3:30 p.m. Central Time. I'll see you later. Have a good one, and we'll see you in the next round.